All right, let's jump right into this. Imagine for a second standing on the day of judgment. Humanity is gathered around, prophets are being questioned, and a massive, literally cosmic conversation is kicking off. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating theological mystery from the Quran, specifically Surah 5117. This is an explainer of source material that shapes the worldview of over a billion people. So let's get into it.
Section 1. The Day of Judgment, a Cosmic Conversation.
In this incredible scene described in the text, God asks Jesus a very direct question. Did you tell people to worship you? And Jesus responds with words that have honestly sparked centuries of intense theological debate. He firmly states that his only message was to worship God. He says, I never told them except what you commanded me. Worship Allah, my Lord and your Lord.
Now, here is where it gets really interesting. It's the remarkable statement that follows this that serves as our primary clue for today's analysis. Jesus continues, saying, And I was a witness over them while I remained among them. But when you took me, you were the watcher over them. Notice that? There's a very distinct shift in time and presence happening right there. And that specific phrasing leads us directly to the core question of this entire explainer. What exactly happened to Jesus? Think about it. If God alone watched over the people after taking him, well, where was he? And what does it actually mean to be taken in this context? Moving on to Section 2, examining Surah 5117, the human prophet. So according to one fascinating interpretation of this source material, Jesus' death was actually already decided by God. This aligns with other verses stating that all prophets are human beings who eventually pass away. Now, supporters of this interpretation argue that the famous verse saying they did not kill him nor crucify him doesn't actually mean eternal physical survival. Instead, it's simply a total rejection of his enemy's victory. Basically, they didn't defeat him. His earthly departure happened entirely on God's terms, not theirs. Section 3. The meaning of death, a linguistic deep dive. To really grasp this, we need to zoom in on the specific Arabic terminology used in the text. When Jesus says, when you took me, that original Arabic word is often translated as you caused me to die or you took me. From a purely linguistic standpoint, supporters of this view argue that the most natural, everyday meaning here indicates death. And from that, they conclude that Jesus is no longer physically alive. Section 4. Raised in status, elevating the soul. Now, you're probably wondering, wait, doesn't the Quran say God raised Jesus? Doesn't that imply he physically floated up into the sky? Well, instead of a physical bodily ascension into the heavens where he lives for thousands of years, this particular interpretation argues that God raised Jesus in status, in honor, and in soul. It's a spiritual elevation that happened after he completed his earthly mission, exactly like how every human soul ultimately returns to God. And this brings us to a crucial logical pivot. Jesus literally says, when you took me, you were the watcher. Let's just think about the logic of that for a second. If Jesus remained physically alive somewhere, supposedly observing humanity for centuries from above, why on earth would he say those exact words to God on the day of judgment? You see, supporters understand this specific phrasing as a clear, final separation from his earthly life. It would be a highly unusual thing to say if he was still physically observing human events. Instead, this framing emphasizes that God stepped in as the sole watcher the exact moment Jesus' earthly mission wrapped up. Which brings us to Section 5, the ultimate message, worship God alone. Zooming back out from all these intense linguistic debates, the overarching message of the text is actually universal and beautifully clear. You know, the Quranic conversation isn't actually obsessing over the physical mechanics of Jesus' departure, not at all. Instead, the focus is heavily placed on personal responsibility, pure worship, and ultimately who truly deserves our devotion. According to this reading of Surah 5117, Jesus himself is pointing us toward one powerful, undeniable conclusion. God alone remains the ultimate witness over humanity. Jesus' own testimony here serves to redirect all the focus and all the reverence entirely back to God. So what do you make of all this? As the debate continues among historians and theologians, we want to leave you to ponder this. Do these ancient words point to a miraculous physical ascension into the heavens, or are they describing the earthly completion of a deeply dedicated prophet's life? It remains a profound mystery and a fascinating piece of source material to explore. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.
ما قلت لهم إلا ما أمرتني به أن اعبدوا الله ربي وربكم وكنت عليهم شهيدا ما دمت فيهم فلما توفيتني كنت أنت الرقيب عليهم وأنت على كل شيء شهيد.